Hey guys, Romanian Reaper here. So I've just got done watching The Old Guard 2 on Netflix. It was directed by Victoria Mahoney, stepping in for the first film's director, Gina Prince Bythewood. And this is of course also based on the comic book by Greg Rucka. I enjoyed the first Old Guard. It was a fun film, had an interesting premise. They got plenty of mileage out of with solid action scenes, gnarly effects, and some quite interesting thematic ideas. Admittedly, the story around all of it was quite safe and generic, but it came out at just the right time during the COVID lockdowns that it was able to scratch that action movie itch. And so, obviously, 5 years later, I was looking forward to finally being able to catch up with this band of immortal action heroes. But does this sequel actually build on the first film's premise in meaningful ways? Let's find out. So the film sees Andy and her team of immortals, Niall, Joe, and Nikki, now with the supervision of CIA agent Copley, find themselves up against an all-new threat when they discover that the first ever immortal, known as Discord, has a plan for revenge that could potentially mark the end of the immortals as they know it. However, further complicating this mission is Andy's newfound mortality and the re-emergence of her pal Quinn, who's come bearing a 500-year grudge. So, 5 years is a weird spot when it comes to sequels. It's not short enough for it to be fresh, but it's also not long enough to be nostalgic. None of this was by design. The film was held up in post-production hell for quite a while, but even still, I was hoping with all that extra time that they'd be cooking up an absolute banger. And look, all I can say is, this film is kind of mind-blowing. All aspects of it, like story, characters, direction, all of it is so much worse than the first film. Like, it's impressive how they had all that extra time, and the film still turned out this bad. For all the issues the first film had with its story being fairly safe and predictable, it was at least functional enough that it was able to build investment in the characters and the world. This one, on the other hand, is just a complete fucking mess. Now, there's so much stuff it wants to explore here. Like, on the one hand, you've got, like, sort of the concept of, Andy's mortality. There's also, like, the sort of conflict that comes of Booker having to come out of his 100-year exile. There's also, most interestingly, the re-emergence of Quinn and the sort of 500 years of history that comes with that. All of that should make for ripe, like, storytelling, but yet none of it ever gets any kind of chance to breathe or get any kind of proper development, as the film just kind of wanders aimlessly between these various different ideas with no kind of meaningful flow or momentum whatsoever. And that's before, obviously, all the new ideas it adds as well, sort of expansions to the lore, which come in the form of Henry Golding's character, Tua, who's basically just an exposition vehicle. It means that none of these new ideas, as interesting as they should be, like notably one about like trading immortality, sort of like the switching places thing from Final Destination. It means it all feels like, rather than organically expanding the world, it just feels shoehorned in to create some more drama just for the sake of the plot. Yeah, I mean, Charlize Theron, bless her heart, she is really trying here as Andy, but there's only so much she can do with a script this weak. It also doesn't help that there's not much of an actual threat here. Like, we do have a villain in the form of the character of Discord, played by Uma Thurman, but the problem is, she's not much of an actual credible threat in that she spends long stretches of the runtime just completely absent, and then when she does show up, she basically just talks in exposition about like human interference and like the last immortal. I and Uma Thurman's acting here is also kind of not good. Like she's trying to sound threatening and menacing, but it all just seems so stiff and labored. It means that she's not a particularly like gripping villain to watch here. Another aspect that is noticeably worse than the first film is the action scenes, which, the first film had some real solid choreography balanced out with some gnarly hailing effects. This one does have some flickers of inspiration when it comes to the choreography, like a particular highlight is a sort of martial arts fight in an alleyway. But the problem is the editing. There are some weird, choppy, abrupt edits that undercut the flow of the action, and you can definitely tell this director has not a lot of experience when it comes to directing action scenes. There's also, much like the first, there are some weird soundtrack choices, again, especially in the action, that just feel so out of place. Notably, there's an edamame needle drop. Like, but again, these song choices just feel so out of place, and you can just tell that the writers were just like sort of chucking in any song choice they could to make the moment seem cool. Which is weird because like there's a score which has the involvement of Lorne Balfe. Why not just lean into that? And so, yeah, all of this considered, it means that the film is a really dull experience to sit through. It means that, the overall experience is just quite a bit of a slog. And so, by the time you get to the third act and some like experimental facility, you're just like, oh shit, are we at here already? But not in that the runtime has flown by it, and that you're just so not invested in anything that's gone on. You're just like, huh, so we're here now. And in some aspects, the third act is kind of worth it. Again, just for the climactic showdown between Theron and Thurman. But oh my god, right at the very end, they did the dirty. The worst, sequel baiting bullshit imaginable, and ended it on a cliffhanger. Yeah, so there is barely a third act here. You gotta wait probably another 5 years for the sequel to resolve it all. Which, judging by the drop off in quality in this film, I'm not holding my breath. But still, though, maybe, just maybe, they'll actually cook up an absolute banger. We'll wait and see, though. Overall, The Old Guard 2 is an incredibly disappointing sequel that wastes all the potential of the first in favour of an aimless, meandering story that never expands on that premise in any meaningful way. Hey, who knows? Maybe the third film will be better. Out of 10, The Old Guard 2 gets a 3. So, let me know down in the comments. Have you seen The Old Guard 2? What did you think of it? What did you make of it in comparison to the first? What did you think of that cliffhanger ending? And, will you be watching the third film? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.